So you don't have to like guns to be present at this presentation. In fact, this presentation is designed for everyone, regardless of your political affiliation or your feelings about wanting us to be able to have guns or not as a society. I would say that it's great for parents, grandparents, guardians, anyone who's thinking about starting a family, hunters, competitors, anyone who's interested in passing on the legacy of sport shooting or how to hunt and do so safely. This is geared to firearms instructors, people who want to have more information about how do we inform people about safety, especially as it applies to children. Teachers, school administrators, and especially those who might not have firsthand experience with firearms. I think that this is an especially valuable presentation for those types of folks who are what we would call gun curious, may have been curious about how firearms works, may have been thinking about getting one, may have just been terrified of them. I think that we live in a society that there are guns everywhere. So many families have them, so many people have them. So regardless of your affiliations, pro-Second Amendment, anti-Second Amendment, Republican, Democrat, whatever, I think it's important to have a basic knowledge so that we can help our children have a basic knowledge and potentially avoid what could be a catastrophic exposure to a firearm. Real or fake?
Real.
That's real. Okay, so if you see, when I go to the next slide, if you see a clown face, it's fake. If you see a skull and crossbones, it's real. So let's see. Fake. Okay, next one. He says it's a modified Glock. Does everyone know? Does anyone think that's a real gun? Well, this one is definitely fake. And I say fake. It's like a airsoft. It does not fire. It cannot hurt you beyond just a sting. All right. Well, let's see. Real or fake? That's a real gun. This one. If you see the skull next to it, that's a real gun. How about this one right here? The one that says Nerf. This is definitely fake. What's your name? What's your name? Ava says this is definitely fake. Is Ava correct on this one or not? We are going to see. We have some people saying it's real, some people saying it's fake. It says Nerf on it, guys.
That don't matter. Next one's fake.
Okay. How about this one? Ryland says this one's fake.
Fake. Orange tip.
What do you guys say about that red rifle? Ryland says it's fake. 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 Okay, let's see. That one has a clown face, so that one is fake. Okay. This purple one, real or fake? You say it's real? Tell me your name again. Ava. Ryland says it's fake. Okay, so like if you found that one and you thought it was fake, you found it like in the park, what are you going to do with it? If you think it's fake, what are you going to do? Thank you, you're going to stop? No, I want to hear it. Stop.
Don't touch, run away, and tell a grown-up.
Thank you. It's fake. Yes, it was a fake one.
That's real.
I was going to say
That is 100% real.
real.
Why does it look so animated?
One of the reasons is fake.
All right, what's the consensus on the green one? Is the green one real? You say it's, Brittany says it's real. Real. I don't know, it looks kind of fake to me. All right, let's see. Oh, okay. Okay. All right, how about this multicolored one here, folks? What do you say that one is? You saw the official news thing? So that tells you that it's real or fake? Real. Let's see. But it looks like a toy.
That's what the entire news thing was.
If I saw that as a firearms instructor, I would think that was a toy.
It looks like fruit stripe jump.
It does, right? All right, let's see. It is, you were right, Rylan, you were right. It is deadly and lethal.
Fake.
This one is fake?
Yep, there is an orange tip.
She's so right. Let's see. This one is fake. Okay, so
That's real.
Miss.
That's conversion kit.
Okay, but so that has an orange tip though, Rylan.
Conversion kit.
Okay, but it has an orange tip. It must be fake if it has an orange tip, right? Right. Okay. All right, let's see. Some say fake, some say real. Everyone says real on that one, but it has an orange tip. Let's see. Okay, so this one clearly is real. This one does not have an orange tip, so that must be real. Is that right?
You can tell in the way it looks.
I don't know. I don't know. It's got a logo on there. It's got a reputable logo. It's got safety. It's got sights on it. It's got a reciprocating.
That looks like that's fake. I knew it.
All right. So I would like to think that if anything, even if you felt like you got most of them or all of them correct, I would like to think that this little bit of the slideshow demonstrated that you can't be sure, and that just because it has an orange tip on it does not mean that it's not a potentially lethal. Lethal means deadly. One of the most important things that I think about when it comes to helping younger people understand gun safety, the dangers of guns, is to talk about it, to have open communication, and to have open communication from whatever young age they're willing and able, and you as a parent are willing and able to have those conversations. We know that our kids are drawn to things that are curious, that might even be mysterious, that might even be taboo, like never touch that drawer isn't going to keep a kid out of that drawer. So if there's a gun in there and it's not in a safe, that doesn't mean that the kid is safe just because you've said, don't touch that drawer. So talk about it. Don't make it taboo. Answer questions. We have to be patient. We have to be non-judgmental. We might hear some crazy questions about it. That's okay. That's part of the learning process. So I like to think about how we converse with our kids about fire, like fire danger. We figure out ways to talk with our kids about fire without terrifying them of fire. We figure out ways to talk to our kids about the importance of wearing seatbelts without terrifying them about having a car accident. We, local Arizona folks, figure out ways to talk to our children about rattlesnakes without terrifying them that every time that they go out, they're going to have to be jumping around because there's rattlesnakes about. I think similarly, it's important to figure out how we as parents can navigate the discussion without making it seem overly interesting, but also not making it seem overly terrifying. Because they are tools and they are inanimate objects that have a purpose. Those are some of my thoughts about being able to talk about firearms clearly and in age-appropriate ways. And as a parent, it's up to us to figure out, navigate, what does that look like for a 3-year-old, for a 7-year-old, for a 14-year-old. The topic of toy guns, it comes up a lot in classes, in conversations. A lot of kids love playing with toy guns. There's also the fact of the matter is that some kids, even if you don't let them play with toy guns, they will still find a stick or a finger. So the concept of wanting to play bang, bang, shoot 'em out is something that we have to address and be aware of at the very least in our society. Kids like to pretend like they're shooting each other. So with that being said, I think that there are pros and cons from a parent's point of view of toy guns. One amazing pro of it is that it helps teach and refine and remind the fundamentals of safe gun handling. But it also depends on how, as parents, we're setting up the rule structure for allowing our kids to play with these toy weapons. I wish I had a very clear-cut answer to this is how it should be done, but I feel like a lot of things go into it, like the temperament, the maturity, the mental state of the kids, the age, the situation, the games that are being played, the constraints of those games. There's just so many factors that go into it that it really is one of those it depends situations. And one of my concerns about about toy guns is the desensitization that can occur. Like if the only thing that a child knows is playing with toy guns, then if and when they see a real gun, if they go over to somebody's house, for instance, and find a gun that's lying around where it shouldn't be, how do they know how to treat that? So I feel like as a parent, again, my 2 cents on it is that I'm not against toy guns, but I do feel like we need to figure out ways to talk about how can you use this toy gun appropriately. And it's going to be different for everyone. I don't have a set answer for that. So moving on to the next topic. Did anyone have any questions, especially the kids, about toy guns? Ava.
So, like, my dad carries a gun.
Good for him. And putting it up high might be a perfect solution right now while you're down low. But there'll come a time where your dad is going to still want to carry and own his weapons, his gun, and not have to worry about you. So as you start to get bigger and as you start to move chairs and ladders around, it might become a different situation where dad says, I need to come up with something else to keep Ava, who's getting all sorts of high places now, from being dangerously curious. Exactly right. I could not agree with you more, and that's why I have so much just depends. I 100% agree with you on that. One thing that I would address that you mentioned, I would never personally encourage any student or any younger person to approach any interaction with a firearm where your finger was always on the trigger, because of the importance of building in the awareness that I only put my finger on the trigger when I'm prepared to shoot. These rules are redundant, and they are redundant for a reason, because of the severity of the consequences of a firearms-related accident. We have layers of redundancy so that if one thing goes wrong, like if you make a mistake and you have your finger on the trigger when you shouldn't, but it's not pointed at anything that can be injured, damaged, or killed, then the worst that can happen is you fire a negligent round, a negligent discharge, and it scares you, it scares the people around you, but it doesn't hurt or destroy anything. Likewise, sometimes you can get away with two of these rules being broken. I say don't ever break these rules, but they are redundant because we want and redundant means, who can describe what redundant means? Not a parent. Who can anyone tell me what redundant means?
Redundant is like repetition.
Repetitive. I like that. It's repetitive. It's saying it's doing the same thing kind of over and over again. It's exactly. So these rules are redundant so that we have the ability to stay safe with something that could potentially be really dangerous. And I think also as parents, I think it's worth mentioning that it's hard for younger people to conceptualize sometimes the permanence and the severity of what can happen with a gun-related accident. So as parents, I think it's incumbent upon us to take that responsibility. Like, we don't want to let our kids have the responsibility of making the decision, this is okay to do with a gun and this isn't okay to do with a gun. I feel like we have that responsibility, if we are going to be gun owners, of helping them stay safe. Because just saying to somebody who's young, hey, you could really injure somebody, or you could potentially take their life, you can, a young person might be able to repeat that, but what that means in terms of the permanence of that, especially when we get into what we'll talk about in a minute, television, video games, movies, condition us to believe that things are different with guns potentially than they really are. So,
Like, what is
yes,
the circumstance for
I like that. I like keeping the safety on until you're ready to shoot for 100%. A lot of modern striker-fired pistols, a lot of pistols do not have safeties on them.
Oh, really?
For sure, yes.
Oh,
Or they don't have a safety like that. They don't have a safety like what you're talking about, where you've got to flip a switch. A lot of firearms these days, popular brands, Glock, Sig Sauer, Smith & Wesson, so many, do not have a safety that you have to flip. It might be, they have safeties. They have internal safeties. They're drop safe. They have safeties inside so that if you drop it, it won't go off. That's an intense story, and that is a reality of the world that we live in, and that's why, part of the reason why I'm a huge advocate for, man, that hits me in the heart. That really upsets me. I'm aware that this is out in the world and that this happens often to people, but just hearing that, it makes me feel emotional, because I don't feel like anybody should ever have their lives threatened in that way. But it does happen. And it's very easy to say, I'm against guns, I'm anti-gun, until all of a sudden you have somebody threatening your life or the life of people that you love, and then all of a sudden you want them to stop. And sometimes the only way to get that evil to stop is with what we would call a force multiplier, a tool that will exert your will and your force of saying stop. Me just saying stop to somebody who's shooting at me isn't going to get them to stop. Me shooting them can get them to stop. Again, we're entering into a much broader context of, okay, somebody's shooting at me. How do I know that I have the training to effectively stop that threat? I feel confident that I have that training, but I think that a lot of people own guns and they are kind of like, dare I say, a protective talisman, where they feel like they have it, but they don't necessarily have the training, a false sense of security. And the statistics are such, though, that I feel like everyone who is a good, sane, sober, moral, and prudent person should have the right to keep and bear arms, because the statistics say that just having a gun, if somebody's threatening you with a knife or a baseball bat, violence, a gun, whatever, just having a gun in your presence is enough oftentimes to deter that threat, even if you don't know how to use it. So again, I feel like we should have that right, but I also feel like, having said that, that it's good to train. It's good to have some experience. It's good to know that if I ever needed to use this weapon, that I'm not going to accidentally shoot grandma or the nun in the bus behind grandma, or or whatever. It's like. Exactly. So it really is a grave responsibility being a firearms owner. So which is why I'm here right now doing this presentation, because I recognize when I say grave, I mean that it's very serious, and I like to be lighthearted about it, and I like to figure out ways that I can talk to young people about it, and sometimes it's hard to express the gravity of it. But then when I hear a story like that, I think you can't help but address that sometimes people use guns for bad things, and sometimes good people with a gun can stop those bad people with a gun from doing those bad things. Visiting other gun owners' homes. I feel like for me this is another touchy topic. So I say touchy topic because sometimes we want to feel like our kids are safe going to a home where we either know or we don't know that the family owns guns. How do you know that the family is responsible with their firearms? Interesting statistics, Raylan. Over a third of unintentional shootings involving children happen at the home of friends, relatives, or neighbors. That's a high statistic. I guarantee you that the majority of those shootings were yes, unintentional, but came with severe trauma, upset, legal ramifications. So just knowing that a huge percentage of, I would consider a huge percentage of unintentional shootings involving children happens at the homes of people that we know and love. So with that being said, it's always an issue for me, especially in a very gun-friendly state like here in Arizona. It's always an issue for me, like, how do I know that my child is safe going to so-and-so's home when I don't know if they own guns? If they do own guns, how are they taken care of? How are they treating them? In fact, I will go so far as to say this. I have friends who are trained with firearms and still feel like it's okay to leave firearms out. I have friends who keep firearms mounted on their walls and have children. I have friends that are high-level instructors and competitive shooters who feel like it's okay to leave the firearm out and about because they feel like it will help dispel the curiosity if the kids just see guns everywhere. I don't feel that way. I feel like that's putting a lot of responsibility on somebody whose brain is still developing. I personally don't feel that way. Again, it's very subjective. So if somebody else feels that way, then we can talk about it. But I feel like being a responsible gun owner means doing those rules of firearm safety, keeping your firearm unloaded until ready to use, keeping it in a safe. Those two things right there will go a long way for me as a parent, for me to feel like, okay, my kid can come over there and feel like I don't have to worry, or I don't have to second guess. So some things that we can do as parents, we can think of, like if we're concerned, hold on one second, Rylan, I'll get to you. Some things that we can do as parents is like think about ways that we can broach the topic sensitively. Like we can talk about our own experience. Like I can say, oh, I can bring up the fact that I'm a competitive shooter, or that I'm an NRA instructor, or, that I have firearms, and then I can talk about how I store my firearms and see if that elicits a conversation. Ask questions like, do you hunt, or do you like to shoot? Again, I feel like talking about how I store my firearms can give an opening for the conversation to start. So for instance, if I say, yeah, I keep all my firearms in a safe, and another parent says, oh, yeah, we have firearms, but they're hanging on the wall, or, I have mine hidden in a drawer, that to me doesn't give me free rein to say you're doing something wrong, but it does give me the ability to say I'm not necessarily comfortable with my son or my daughter going over to this situation, and especially unsupervised. Another thing that I think of when it comes to going over to the houses of other gun owners is if we allow that, I think it's important that we also reserve the right in our own head to revoke that. Like I think it's okay to say no. I think that's important. I think that feeling okay with that decision because of the potential ramifications is an important thing to keep in mind. Also, I think it's important if your child goes over to somebody's house who you know is a gun owner, I think it's important to check in with your child afterwards and see how they felt about that, if they observed anything that they felt was amiss or like not in line with our rules of gun safety. Again, it doesn't mean that the child can't go over there, but it's something to talk about. And it could be a learning experience. It's a teachable moment, as we say. I hear you. I appreciate that. I'm going to play a little devil's advocate. I will also give a recommendation for your husband to follow on YouTube, Active Self-Protection, if he doesn't already. Active Self-Protection is the most popular channel on YouTube for self-defense encounters. And the guy who is the owner of this channel, the company, is a friend of mine. His name is John Correa, and he has analyzed upwards of 50,000 self-defense encounters, most of which involve firearms. And he has an interesting body of statistics. And among those statistics are some that will give your husband pause to carrying openly because of the number of people who are not afraid of open carriers. The people who are afraid of open carriers aren't the one that he has to worry about. It's the people who have served hard time, who have been in violent conflict, who have fighting skills, who will say, that's not your gun, that's our gun, and I can get that gun from you pretty quickly. And I see a lot of incidences where somebody's open carrying and that gun is gone. And as soon as that gun is gone, it's not your gun anymore. I think I'm all for open carry, don't get me wrong, but I do know that the statistics aren't what I would have thought they were. And again, Active Self-Protection, John Correa, easy to find, lots of information, both in terms of like the average time, the average distance of self-defense encounters, skill building topics are covered on his channel, as well as this, I would say, a myth of open carrying being deterrent to hardened criminals. So check it out, have them do that, feel free to get back to me. One other thing about open carry though is that all of that is true, and also I think that it can make other people uncomfortable. And I don't think as carriers of a firearm that our goal is ever to make anybody feel uncomfortable. And especially like in homeschool or school community groups, I feel like the last thing I want to do is turn somebody off to me or make somebody feel like I'm because even though in our minds as somebody who carries responsibly, we're like, I'm here to protect myself, my kids, and everyone in my circle. It's not perceived that way by everyone. In fact, it's perceived opposite by a lot of people, like, especially because no one knows what my training is, or people might be like, how do I know he knows how to use that thing? How do I know he's not going to shoot himself in the foot, or worse, shoot me by accident? So it's one of those things where it's very easy to turn people off from you if they see you with a firearm, just because so many people are scared of them or don't know about them or what have you. So it's interesting. Again, I'm not against open carry by any stretch, but these are things that I think about when I make my own decisions. So we have something that we call the desensitization dilemma that comes from TV, video games, and movies. All of that media can kind of desensitize our children to what actual gun encounters can look like. So having said that, though, we can also use that as a teachable moment. So for instance, Jurassic Park. For those of us who went to see Jurassic Park, there were weapons in that. There were people being shot at and being shot and people shooting. That's a PG-13 movie, I think. That's a great opportunity for us as parents to enjoy the media, enjoy the movie, but also afterwards talk to our kids about this was unrealistic, or this person showed great gun handling skills, or responsible gun handling skills, or handled that firearm safely. Or you could tell that Scarlett Johansson, who was the star of the last Jurassic Park, had done some training, because every time that she had that firearm, she might have had a rifle or a gun or whatever, but every time she had it, she was keeping it low and not pointing at anybody, or her finger was in this high off the trigger position. So that's an opportunity for us as parents to talk with our kids about the pros and the cons. Or we might see somebody get shot and then fall down and then manage to crawl away, or we might see them die instantly. That's not always what happens in either direction. So we can use those experiences of the media as teachable moments. Even if it's wildly inaccurate, we can be like, that would never happen in a real in altercation with a firearm. Or that was accurate. Sometimes people get shot and don't expire right away. Sometimes people get shot once and that's the end of them, you know? So it just depends. It's another one of those depend things. But I think that there is what again we call the desensitization dilemma, that I think it's important that we stay tuned in to what our kids are consuming, because especially if they're around firearms, like if we have firearms in the home, if they go to homes that have firearms, because it's easy for that to happen, where they get desensitized to the extreme consequences of gun violence, a gun encounter, or what have you.